Liam Carter returned to his secluded cabin after a long day of work, expecting nothing but the quiet embrace of the forest. Instead, a bright red envelope nailed to his door stopped him cold. The words were bold, almost violent, against the worn wood. 24-hour notice. Demolish your cabin. He stood frozen, reading the words again and again, as if repetition might change their meaning. The forest around him fell silent, the usual chorus of birds and rustling leaves giving way to an oppressive stillness. His hands trembled as he pulled the envelope free, the nail leaving a scar in the timber. The HOA seal gleamed at the bottom of the page, official and unforgiving. But his cabin sat outside their jurisdiction. It always had. His grandfather had built this place decades before the housing development even existed, before Vanessa Whitmore and her petty kingdom of rules had staked their claim on the surrounding land. He stepped off the porch and saw her waiting in the driveway. Vanessa Whitmore stood near a golf cart, arms crossed over her chest, a smile curling at the edges of her lips. She wore her authority like armor, sunglasses perched on her nose despite the fading light. "Good evening, Mr. Carter. We noticed your cabin violates community standards, and rules are rules." Liam's jaw tightened. "My cabin is outside your jurisdiction. It's always been outside your jurisdiction." Vanessa tilted her head, amusement flickering across her face. "Rules extend further than you think. You have 24 hours to comply, or we proceed with demolition." The sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the gravel. Liam studied her face, searching for some crack in her confidence, some hint of doubt. He found none. This wasn't bureaucratic overreach. This was personal. Vanessa Whitmore wanted his land, and she intended to take it. Before he could respond, the crunch of tires on gravel announced another arrival. Sheriff Blake's patrol truck rolled to a stop, and the man himself stepped out, calm but watchful. His eyes moved from Vanessa to Liam, then to the red envelope still clutched in Liam's hand. "Mr. Carter," Blake said, approaching slowly, "I received a call from the HOA about a demolition notice. Mind if I take a look?" Liam handed over the envelope without a word. The sheriff scanned the document, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. "This is extreme," Blake muttered, folding the paper carefully. "A 24-hour demolition notice for property that sits outside HOA boundaries. That's not just aggressive, that's legally questionable." Vanessa's smile flickered, but only for a moment. "Just keeping the community safe, Sheriff. I'm sure you understand." Blake didn't respond. He handed the envelope back to Liam and met his eyes with a look that said more than words could. "Be careful. Document everything." That night, Liam retrieved his Sentinel Cam S9 from storage, a sophisticated motion-sensing camera he had used in previous engineering projects. He mounted it carefully, angling the lens toward the access path leading to his cabin. Within minutes, the device picked up movement, shadows creeping along the perimeter, flashlights sweeping across his property line, whispered voices discussing obstacles and measurements. He watched the feed from inside, his blood running cold. They weren't just threatening him, they were preparing for action. Jenna arrived quietly, slipping through the back door with a thermos of coffee and worry etched across her face. She scanned the footage playing on his tablet, her expression hardening. "They're serious," she said softly. "This isn't just a scare tactic. They want your property gone." Liam rubbed his temples. "I've dealt with bureaucracy before, but nothing like this. This is coordinated, planned." Jenna placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. "Then we handle it together. But you need to think smart. Don't give them a reason to twist this against you." By dawn, Liam had mapped the entire cabin perimeter and established a network of digital proof. Every trespass would be captured automatically. Photographs, timestamps, motion logs, all saved to a secure cloud that Vanessa couldn't touch. He reviewed the overnight footage, noting faces, tools, and potential legal violations. When Vanessa's SUV appeared at the edge of his property that morning, she barked orders to her HOA crew without hesitation. They moved with purpose, measuring tape stretched between stakes and cameras clicking photos of his home. Liam watched from the tree line, invisible and patient. They thought 24 hours was enough. They had no idea how wrong they were. That night, Vanessa returned under cover of darkness. Moonlight painted her in silver and shadow as she prowled the perimeter, clipboard in hand, directing her team like a general commanding troops. "Measure every inch," she hissed. "No mistakes, no excuses." Liam tracked them through the Sentinel Cam, heat signatures glowing on his screen as they crept across his land. Every footstep was logged, every violation recorded. Vanessa thought she was building a case against him. In reality, she was constructing her own downfall. The camera caught one of her crew members, Dalton Reed, hesitating at a boundary marker. His conscience flickered visibly, a moment of doubt crossing his face before Vanessa's sharp voice snapped him back into action. Liam filed that hesitation away for later. Sheriff Blake arrived at first light for what he called a routine check-in. His trained eyes missed nothing: the disturbed soil, the footprints beyond property markers, the hastily placed stakes that hadn't been there before. "This doesn't look right," Blake said, scanning the evidence of overnight intrusion. "These aren't just rules being enforced. This is trespassing." Liam showed him the Sentinel Cam footage. Every motion was timestamped and geotagged, creating an irrefutable record of illegal activity. Blake's expression hardened. "If they make a move against you, I'll intervene. But you need to build an airtight case. Don't give them anything they can use." By midday, Liam had created a geofencing alert system. Anyone crossing onto his land would trigger an instant notification, complete with photos and video saved automatically. He shared access only with Jenna and Sheriff Blake. "They think they can scare me into submission," Liam said, gazing out at the lake. "But every violation they commit now becomes a weapon in my hands." Jenna proposed a bold strategy. Let the HOA overextend themselves. Encourage them to return, to push harder, to cross more lines. Every illegal action would be documented beyond denial. Make them prove their authority, and when they can't, we'll have everything we need. At the break of dawn, the HOA returned in force. Heavy tools, fresh stakes, and measuring tapes filled their hands as Vanessa led the charge. Confidence radiated from every movement, but Liam was ready. Hidden cameras captured every transgression. Hands cutting into private fences, vehicles parked on his property without permission, photographs taken of his home. Then, the geofence alert sounded. Dalton Reed had crossed a clearly marked boundary. Liam had the timestamp, the photo, and the video. Vanessa noticed something wrong. Her eyes caught the glint of cameras lining the tree line, and her confidence wavered for the first time. Liam stepped from the shadows, his voice steady and commanding. "Every move you make is evidence. Every trespass is logged. Take one more step, and the entire HOA will be exposed." Vanessa's smug expression cracked. She was no longer facing a frightened homeowner. She was facing someone who had turned her aggression into a trap. Dalton Reed lingered at the edge of the property long after Vanessa and her crew had retreated. Guilt weighed heavy on his shoulders, pressing down with each passing hour. He had followed orders without question, crossed lines he knew were wrong, and watched as Vanessa steamrolled over a man whose only crime was owning land she coveted. That night, he appeared at Liam's door, hands trembling, eyes unable to meet Liam's gaze. "I can't do this anymore," Dalton whispered, stepping inside when Liam wordlessly opened the door wider. "I've watched her destroy people, good people, and I just stood there." Liam studied him carefully, searching for signs of deception. Why come to me now? Dalton reached into his jacket and produced a USB drive, sliding it across the kitchen table with shaking fingers. "Because I've been recording everything. The meetings, the orders, the conversations where she admitted none of this was legal. It's all there." Liam picked up the drive, turning it over in his palm. "If she finds out you gave me this, she'll come after you with everything she has." "I know," Dalton's voice cracked, "but I can't live with myself if I let her win. Not this time." Liam slipped the drive into his pocket. "Then we make sure she never suspects. We use her own arrogance against her, and by the time she realizes what happened, it'll be too late." The next morning, Vanessa's fury came like a summer storm. She descended on the property with renewed aggression, her voice cutting through the morning air as she barked commands to her crew. "Whoever is working against me will regret it," she announced, waving demolition notices like weapons. "We finish this today. No more delays." Her team moved faster and harder than before, trampling through Liam's garden, knocking against his veranda posts, ignoring every boundary marker as if they didn't exist. They operated with the reckless confidence of people who believed themselves untouchable. But the Sentinel Cam caught everything. Footsteps on private soil, hands gripping property that wasn't theirs, tools cutting into fences that had stood for generations. Each violation became another frame in Liam's growing collection of evidence. Jenna watched the live feed from inside the cabin, her jaw tight with controlled anger. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. She thinks she's already won. "That's exactly what I'm counting on," Liam replied, his voice low and steady. "Every line she crosses now is another nail in her coffin." Sheriff Blake arrived at midday, drawn by an anonymous tip that Dalton had carefully planted. The sheriff stepped out of his truck and surveyed the chaos. Torn fencing, stake markers driven into private land, HOA vehicles parked well beyond any legal boundary. His expression darkened as he approached Vanessa.
"Mrs. Whitmore," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority she could not override, "you do not have jurisdiction here. What I'm seeing is criminal trespassing and willful destruction of private property." Vanessa's face flushed crimson. "This is community enforcement, Sheriff. We have every right to—" "You have no rights here," Blake interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This property has never fallen under HOA authority. Your presence here is illegal. Remove your people and your equipment, or I will arrest every single one of you." The HOA crew froze, uncertain eyes darting between their president and the sheriff. For the first time, the consequences of their blind obedience became terrifyingly real. Vanessa opened her mouth to protest, but Blake's hand moved to rest on his belt, a subtle reminder of the power he carried. Slowly, reluctantly, she signaled her crew to withdraw. But the damage was already done. Every moment of their intrusion had been recorded, time-stamped, and preserved. That evening, Liam and Jenna worked together to compile the evidence. Dalton's USB drive contained hours of recordings, HOA meetings where Vanessa openly admitted the demolition notice had no legal standing, conversations where she instructed her team to forge boundary documents, phone calls where she threatened contractors who refused to participate in her scheme. Combined with the Sentinel Cam footage, they had assembled an irrefutable case. "This goes to the county officials first," Jenna said, organizing files on her laptop. "Then the media. By the time Vanessa realizes what's happening, she'll be fighting on every front." Liam nodded, a grim satisfaction settling in his chest. She built her power on intimidation. She never considered that someone might turn her own tactics against her. Vanessa sensed the shifting tide, but couldn't identify its source. She noticed her crew's hesitation, the way they avoided her eyes, the whispered conversations that stopped whenever she approached. Paranoia crept into her thoughts, poisoning her usual confidence. "Something's wrong," she muttered to Dalton during a late-night strategy session. "Someone's feeding them information." Dalton kept his expression carefully neutral. "Maybe they're just scared of the sheriff's warning." But Vanessa wasn't convinced. She ordered a full perimeter sweep of Liam's property, desperate to find the source of her unease. Her crew trudged across his land once more, flashlights cutting through the darkness, unaware that every step was being documented and stored in a cloud server they would never access. Dawn broke with the weight of reckoning. Liam released the evidence simultaneously to county officials, local media, and state regulatory agencies. The dossier was comprehensive and damning. Videos of trespassing, audio recordings of conspiracy, photographs of forged documents, and time-stamped logs of every illegal action the HOA had taken. When Vanessa arrived at Liam's property that morning, ready to resume her campaign of intimidation, she found a very different scene waiting for her. County inspectors lined the perimeter, examining boundary markers and comparing them to official surveys. Sheriff Blake stood near the cabin, arms crossed, his deputies positioned strategically around the property. A news van had parked on the road, its camera already rolling. Vanessa's SUV slowed to a stop. Through the windshield, Liam watched the color drain from her face. "What is this?" she demanded, stepping out of the vehicle with forced bravado. "What's going on here?"
A county official approached her, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Whitmore, we've received extensive documentation of illegal activity conducted under your authority. Trespassing, document forgery, attempted illegal demolition, harassment. You're facing a formal investigation." "That's absurd," Vanessa sputtered. "This is a community matter. The HOA has every right to enforce standards." "Not here," the official interrupted. "This property has never been under HOA jurisdiction. Every action you've taken against Mr. Carter has been illegal." Liam stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying clearly across the gathered crowd. "Every violation is documented, Mrs. Whitmore. Every trespass, every forged permit, every threat you made. You thought 24 hours was enough to scare me into submission. Instead, you gave me everything I needed to expose the truth." The HOA crew members shifted uncomfortably, some already backing toward their vehicles. They had followed Vanessa's orders without question, and now they faced the consequences of that blind loyalty. Dalton stepped forward from among them, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "She ordered us to ignore property boundaries," he said, addressing the county officials directly. "She told us the permits didn't matter, that she would handle any legal problems. We should have refused. I should have refused sooner." Vanessa turned on him, fury blazing in her eyes. "You treacherous little—" "Enough!" Sheriff Blake cut in, stepping between them. "Mrs. Whitmore, you're facing multiple charges. I suggest you contact your attorney and refrain from making your situation worse." The media cameras captured every moment. Vanessa's crumbling composure, the HOA members distancing themselves from their former leader, the county officials methodically documenting every violation. The story would air that evening, spreading through the community like wildfire. Within a week, the fallout was complete. Vanessa Whitmore was removed from her position as HOA president, pending a full criminal investigation. The demolition notice was voided, declared illegal from the moment it was issued. Several HOA board members resigned, unwilling to face the scrutiny that now surrounded the organization. Liam stood on his porch, watching the last of the investigators pack up their equipment. The forest had returned to its natural quiet, the chaos of recent days fading like a bad dream. Jenna joined him, handing him a cup of coffee. "How does it feel?" He considered the question, letting the warmth of the mug seep into his palms. "Like I can finally breathe again." They had rebuilt the fence together, stronger than before. New security cameras lined the perimeter, their unblinking eyes ensuring that no one would ever again mistake Liam's patience for weakness. The garden, trampled during the HOA's invasions, was slowly recovering, tender green shoots pushing through the disturbed soil. Dalton appeared a few days later, hesitant and apologetic. He found Liam by the lake, skipping stones across the glassy surface. "I wanted to thank you," Dalton said quietly, "for not turning me in with the rest of them. I know I was part of the problem." Liam turned to face him. "You made a choice when it mattered. That counts for something." "She's going to fight the charges, you know that, right? She's got money, lawyers, connections." "Let her fight." Liam skipped another stone, watching it bounce 4 times before sinking beneath the surface. "Every legal battle she wages now will be fought under a spotlight. She can't bully her way out of documented evidence." Dalton nodded slowly, relief mixing with residual shame. "What will you do now?" Liam looked out at the lake, its surface reflecting the afternoon sky like a mirror. "Live. That's all I ever wanted. Just to live in peace, in a place my grandfather built, without someone trying to take it from me." Night fell over the cabin, painting the world in shades of silver and shadow. Liam sat on the porch, listening to the familiar sounds of the forest, the whisper of wind through the pines, the distant call of an owl, the gentle lapping of water against the shore.
Jenna settled into the chair beside him, pulling a blanket around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked. Liam considered the question, watching the stars emerge one by one above the tree line. For now, Vanessa's lost her power, her reputation, her position, but people like her don't give up easily. There will always be someone who thinks they can take what isn't theirs. He paused, a faint smile touching his lips. "But I'll be ready. I'll always be ready." The camera would have pulled back, if this were a film, rising slowly to capture the cabin glowing warmly against the darkness, the lake stretching silver and still toward the distant shore, the trees standing sentinel around the property they had protected for generations. Vanessa Whitmore had learned a lesson she would never forget. Some battles cannot be won with intimidation. Some people cannot be frightened into surrender. And some places are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Liam Carter had fought not with anger, not with violence, but with patience, intelligence, and the unshakable conviction that the truth, properly documented and strategically deployed, was the most powerful weapon of all. The HOA's tyranny had crumbled, the cabin stood, the lake gleamed. And finally, after everything, Liam Carter could rest. The peace he had always sought was finally his to keep.